God damn, somebody at Intelligence Systems must watch my videos, because only a couple of days after I make a critically acclaimed video essay on why Fire Emblem has never once gotten the traitor plot right, they decide to challenge me by releasing Fire Emblem Among Us. Unfortunately, this doesn't in any way undercut my main point, because, as it turns out, this game that is fully designed around traitors being a central and core mechanic of the gameplay does not get the traitor mechanic right. 5 Points already did an excellent video talking about how the best strategy for the imposter is to just spam attacks and completely give away that they're the traitor, which kind of undercuts the idea of a social deduction traitor game, so good job, Intelligence Systems, you still can't do traitor plots correctly. I would love to simply ignore the existence of this freemium garbage mobile game, but unfortunately it has our first canonically lesbian cross-dresser lord, so I'm probably going to have to dive into the lore implications of all these furry versions of past characters eventually. But we'll save that episode of FSRPG Sapphics for Pride Month, because this has given me the perfect excuse to revisit and expand upon some things that I didn't cover in the initial Traitors video. Namely, the fact that while the Fire Emblem series has never once nailed the traitor plot, series creator Shozu Kaga did experiment with the idea of betrayal in his follow-up series, colloquially referred to as the Kaga Sagas. So, spoilers ahead for Treason Saga and Berwick Saga. I haven't played Vestaria Saga because I'm a fake fucking gamer, so if there's a traitor in that game, it's not gonna get covered in this video. Sorry. Very early on in Treason Saga, you are fighting the evil cult that is the main antagonist of the campaign, and you run into one of its soldiers, who immediately asks to defect to your side. As it turns out, the majority of these soldiers in the evil cult are slaves, who were captured and tortured and then forced into service under threat of death and more torture. This soldier, Zeus, is a broken husk of a man, and I do mean broken in both a gameplay and story perspective, because in gameplay, he is an incredibly busted unit. He's one of the few cast members that can use lances indoors, a very desirable trait in TRS, and while outdoors, he is a mounted unit with Nihil, Wrath, Adept, Paragon, Frontiersman, which gives an extra point of move on certain maps, and eventually Canto, a skill that is not guaranteed for all mounted units in this game. TRS is weird. The main point I'm trying to make is Zig is incredibly busted, and on my first playthrough of the game, he was a hard carry for me. From a story perspective, it was satisfying to see him get revenge on his captors, and from a gameplay perspective, it was a zero to hero arc, only without the zero, because he's also very strong at base. But I think the most appealing thing about Zeke is his character plotline throughout the story. You see, as a defector from the cult of Grexel, Zeke is someone who the rest of the army is immediately suspicious of. Rathan in particular is suspicious because supposedly he and Zeke had served in the same army before Zeke was captured, but Rathan doesn't recognize Zeke at all, and you would think that he would at least have gotten a passing glance at him. Making matters worse is the fact that Zeke is very distant from the rest of their army, not participating in things like banquets or other downtime activities. Of course, this is easily explained by his years of trauma just breaking him as a person, but it also is kind of inherently suspicious. The only person in the army who really shows Zeke any kindness is Kate, the retainer of Lady Sasha. While she initially approaches him with the suspicions that others have, upon seeing the scarring all over his body from the whips that he received as a slave, any doubts in Kate's mind are thoroughly eliminated, and she becomes Zeke's only friend in the army. And eventually, the two of them fall in love. It's honestly a very touching tale about a completely broken and traumatized person learning to be human again. It's also a complete fucking lie. Because, yeah, Zeke is actually a traitor. He joined Renan's army not out of any desire to fight against the cult, but to be a spy and report on the location of the water shaman, because part of the cult of Grexel's overall plan involves them kidnapping all 4 of the elemental shamans in order to revive their dark god. Standard fantasy stuff, you know? At about the halfway point of the game, it is revealed that Zeke is a traitor, he leaves your army permanently, and will eventually be a playable boss that you fight on 2 occasions. One time he has the stats that he gained through level ups in your army, and the other time he has a fixed set of stats. I personally got fooled by this on my first playthrough, although I imagine if you are suspicious enough you could have seen it coming, as the game isn't exactly subtle about the fact that there is something off about this former Shadow Knight. But so here's the thing about Zeus's traitor plot is it's actually a little bit more complicated than I'm making it seem, because while it's entirely possible that Zeus was faking his emotional connection with Kate in order to reduce suspicion that the rest of the army had on him, it's also strongly implied that he did genuinely fall for her. She was, after all, the only person in his life who showed him kindness, including his own family and allies in the cult. And in the scene where we learn Zeke is a traitor and he abandons Renan's army, we also learn that he had stopped sending reports to the cult a few weeks prior. And the timeline of this aligns with when he and Kate began their romance. Not only that, but the events that occur after Zeke betrays Renan's army paint a much more complicated picture of, in my opinion, the franchise's best Camus archetype. You see, while most of the army is just willing to accept that Zeke was a turncoat, Kate is convinced that he was actually kidnapped by the cult again, and is being forced once more to fight against his own will. As such, when very late into the campaign, Zeke is defeated and captured by Holmes's army, Kate will free him under the impression that he is, in his heart of hearts, a good person. Technically, this scene is optional. If Kate isn't present to be able to free Zeke, then his older sister will teleport in and free him instead, but I think it's more narratively satisfying for Kate to free him, especially considering what comes next. Because either way, after Zeke is freed, he will meet up with Kate, and he's actually quite happy to see her. She tells him that now that he's free, he can go rejoin Renan and explain everything in order to live in freedom. But before Zeke has the chance to accept or reject this offer, his immediate superior in the cult, Nevka, shows up. And Nevka assumes that Zeke had captured Kate. Or, honestly, to be more accurate, Nevka insists that Zeke captured Kate. You see, Nevka is a little bit suspicious of Zeke's loyalty, and so by showing up and insisting, "Oh, you captured Kate," he puts Zeke in a position where he can't really object to that without forfeiting his and Kate's life. Kate is therefore brought to the cult's jail, and you need to rescue her. Depending on routing choices, that'll either be in Chapter 38 or Chapter 39, which are both very close to the end of the game. Although, if you want to get the most satisfying conclusion to Zeke's ending, you're going to want Kate to get captured and put in the jail for Chapter 39. Because this is the other chapter where you fight Zeke, and Kate actually has a boss conversation with him. Upon initiating battle, Kate confronts Zeke for betraying her and says that she'll always hate him. But this conversation goes deeper if she manages to land the killing blow. She'll ask him why he pretended to love her, and Zeke just tells her to forget about him. He says that he's just a Shadow Knight, and that's all he deserves to be in her memory. To me, this reads pretty clearly like a completely broken man who was unable to break out of the brainwashing that the cult gave him, despite the fact that he genuinely loved Kate. And I do think their romance was genuine, and I would even argue that this final act, this denial of the romance, is, in a twisted way, an action motivated by that love. Zeke doesn't want Kate to be sad for him, and he thinks that if he reveals that their romance was genuine, it's just going to break her heart all over again. Not only that, but his self-loathing for the fact that he sided with the evil cult despite everything is coming through and causing him to want to be remembered as just another evil Shadow Knight. Nothing more, nothing less. It's honestly quite tragic. Some of the best writing in any Fire Emblem, even though it's not actually in Fire Emblem. And depending on how I'm feeling about it, this is either the best or second best iteration of the Camus archetype, with, in my opinion, the other main contender being Genealogy of the Holy War. Before we move on from Tearing Saga though, I do want to talk about one other cool detail in the Kate Zeiss romance. Every character in your army has their own title, such as Simple Woodcutter or the Golden Knight. Zeke's title is the Sorrowful Knight, and honestly, it's quite fitting. There's a lot of depressing shit involving this guy. Kate's title, on the other hand, is more boring. She's just called the Welty's Knight because she's a knight from the nation of Welt, but once Zeke leaves, and in her mind is kidnapped, she takes on his title of Sorrowful Knight and has it for the remainder of the game. This probably indicates that despite Zeke's best efforts, his trauma did in fact spread to Kate, and she carries it as a burden with her for the rest of her life. Berwick Saga doesn't have a traitor plotline per se, but the character Owen at least plays with elements of blue units turning against you, and since Fire Emblem Shadows is apparently about the traitor becoming a monster, it feels like a fitting inclusion to talk about Owen, since his whole gimmick is that if enough time passes, he will turn into a crazed monk that goes berserk and tries to murder all of his former allies. Specifically, what happens is that on turn 20 of any map, he succumbs to this curse and goes berserk to try to murderize you. This sounds like a huge downside, but realistically, it isn't really one. Most maps in the game will be finished by the time turn 20 rolls around, and I'm not just saying that as some sort of fast play elitist. Even if you're going through the game slowly, maps just don't drag out that long for most of Berwick Saga. And even if you find yourself in a situation where you are playing a map until turn 25 or something, Owen has the ability Return, which allows him to, at any point, teleport off the map, just be gone completely. It's functionally an escape command that he can activate on any tile. That means if you get to turn 19 and are scared that you won't be able to close things out before Owen's transformation, you can risk-free just have him teleport away. The only downside is you are now down one blue unit, but that's certainly much better than having to fight against one of your own former comrades, and potentially lose him forever. I couldn't find any information online as to whether or not you permanently lose him or if he just gets cured before the next battle, but honestly, I wouldn't risk it. It's just not worth it when it's so easy to avoid. I do like the idea of a powerful player unit that has a severe downside you need to manage, but in my opinion, it's just too easy to avoid the downsides of Owen altogether. Thankfully, this concept of a strong player unit with an equally strong downside has been explored in other fan projects. The one that immediately comes to mind for me is Bells of Balin, where the overpowered hero Cromar causes Fog of War to appear on any map where he's deployed. Although a bit closer to Owen's Berserk form is a character from the highly anticipated upcoming SRPG Death and Tactics, who has the option to self-berserk in order to gain a major stat boost, but be removed from the player's control, and therefore potentially even attack his allies while it's ongoing. Those are the main examples I can think of, but if any of you in the comment section know of powerful units with equally powerful downsides, I'd be eager to hear about them and potentially check out those SRPGs or ROM hacks. It's certainly a better use of my time than playing a mobile game so shitty that Doug Bowser retired in shame the day after it was released. Anyway, I should probably thank my patrons. So thank you to Glup Shido, Electric Giga, Erica Ford, YLO1, George Grenville the 7th PM, Jamie Collins, Arvis, Crispy Matthews, Floahay, I Like Rattata, Amy Hazel, Faulty Videos, Kyle Madison, Derek Williams, Anna Cabana, The Daily Foogle, Faye, Magic Bite, Thoughtful Insanity, Robin Goodfeller, Dysike, Chris, Root Beer Pants, Queen Elizam, Control Aegis, Roman Kromansic, Nick Knack Hammersmack, Carrier Has Left, Angel Napcaceres, Cabbage, SUP, Caius Cole, Bree, Punchfighter Champion, Eggman, Maxine the Vampire Queen, Dragon Mac Lancer, Sardonic Muse, Wannabe Cinnabon, Leptin, Key the Iron Idol, Calamity Callie, Anon Wanderer, A Clever Username of Lies, Jackson McMahon, Saren Gurlixy, Rezi, Andu, Rhea, Gameboo, Carosa, Fyrant, Your Doctor, Frozen Helm, Patwit, Pillow Willow, Girl Boss, Lizard Bongwater, Christopher Bueno, Marin McLean, Jaden, Reflect, Dylan Solis, Forever Lucas, Some Trades, Guiji555, Smaz Ruby, Zycrom, Robin D, Alen B, Hound Dogs, They Thom, Clan, Reflect, and especially my Jagans, Shinthia, Adele, Alexander Roper, Siggy, and Serial Bowl. Or at least I would thank you if I weren't an imposter! Link to the Patreon below. Only donate if you can afford it. Y'all know the drill. Goodbye, gamers. I'm gonna go be evil somewhere else. Bye.